17 days after Nancy Guthrie mysteriously disappeared from her home in Tucson, investigators are now confronting a troubling possibility. The case may be far more complicated than anyone originally believed. When the investigation first began, detectives focused on the most obvious explanation, a burglary that had gone terribly wrong. Signs of disturbance inside the home, combined with damaged security cameras, suggested someone had broken in during the night. But as the days passed and forensic teams analyzed the evidence, the case began to change direction. Now, the FBI and local investigators are reportedly revisiting one of the most puzzling pieces of evidence discovered during the investigation: a phone call that referenced an enormous sum of money. $5 million. That single detail may hold the key to understanding what really happened the night Nancy vanished. Nancy Guthrie had spent decades living a quiet life in Tucson. Neighbors described her as kind, welcoming, and deeply devoted to her family. Despite her daughter Savannah Guthrie's well-known career in national television, Nancy preferred to stay out of the spotlight. The evening before her disappearance appeared completely ordinary. Nothing unusual had been reported in the neighborhood. No loud arguments, no suspicious activity, and no emergency calls. But sometime during the night, something changed. Security cameras that normally monitored Nancy's property suddenly went offline. When investigators later examined the equipment, they discovered several cameras had been deliberately damaged or removed entirely. This was not accidental. Someone had clearly taken steps to avoid being recorded. The destruction of the cameras immediately raised questions. Whoever entered the property appeared to know exactly where the devices were located. The damage was precise, targeting only the cameras that covered key areas of the house. Investigators believe the person responsible likely understood the layout of the property. That level of familiarity suggested the possibility that the intruder was not a stranger at all. Inside the home, detectives discovered subtle signs that something had occurred during the night. Furniture appeared slightly disturbed. A few items were out of place, but there were no obvious signs of a violent struggle. Nancy Guthrie herself was gone. There were no ransom notes, no phone calls demanding money, or no clear explanation for where she might have been taken. In the early days of the investigation, forensic teams focused heavily on physical evidence. One piece of DNA collected at the scene gave investigators hope. The sample was quickly processed and compared against a massive national database containing more than 22 million DNA profiles. Detectives believed the test might identify a suspect or at least provide a lead. But when the results came back, the outcome was devastating. There was no match. The person connected to the DNA sample had never been arrested before, or their profile simply did not exist in the system. For investigators, it meant the case had lost one of its most promising leads. While forensic teams worked inside the house, analysts began examining digital evidence connected to the case. Phone records, or financial transactions, and electronic communications were carefully reviewed. Most of the data appeared routine, hundreds of calls, texts, and messages that had nothing to do with the disappearance. But then investigators discovered something unusual. Buried among those records was a conversation that immediately caught their attention. During the call, someone mentioned a specific amount of money, $5 million. That number stood out instantly. For detectives, it raised a critical question. Why would anyone mention such a large amount of money around the same time Nancy Guthrie disappeared? In many investigations involving kidnappings, money is often a central factor. But what made this case unusual was the timing of the conversation. The call occurred shortly before Nancy vanished. Where investigators began to wonder whether the two events might be connected. If someone believed they could obtain $5 million, that suggested a level of planning far beyond a random burglary. It also suggested the person involved may have believed someone in Nancy's family could actually pay such an amount. Nancy was not simply an anonymous resident. She was the mother of Savannah Guthrie, a nationally recognized television journalist. Her family had a public profile, and that raised a disturbing possibility. As detectives traced the phone records further, they reportedly discovered that the call may have involved someone connected to Nancy's extended family. Sources close to the investigation say the name that appeared in connection with the conversation was Tommaso Shinnie, Nancy's son-in-law. At this stage, authorities have not announced any formal accusations, but investigators are carefully reviewing all communications linked to the call. Family members are always interviewed during missing person investigations. It is standard procedure. Detectives typically examine the movements and activities of everyone close to the victim, but discovering a conversation involving millions of dollars connected to someone within the family circle added a new layer of complexity to the case. Now, detectives are working to reconstruct exactly what happened in the hours before Nancy disappeared. Phone activity, digital records, and location data are being analyzed minute by minute. Authorities want to determine who had contact with Nancy during that critical period. They are also examining who may have had access to her home. And the damaged security cameras remain one of the most troubling details. Whoever disabled them knew exactly where they were located. That knowledge suggests familiarity with the property, and investigators are now asking a difficult question. Could the person responsible have been someone Nancy trusted? As the investigation continues, new questions continue to emerge. Why was there no immediate ransom demand? If money was involved, why has no one contacted the family to request payment? And what exactly was discussed during that mysterious phone call mentioning $5 million? For now, authorities are not releasing all of the details publicly. Investigators say doing so could compromise the case. But behind the scenes, teams of analysts and detectives continue reviewing every piece of evidence. Every call, every message, every movement connected to the timeline of that night. 17 days after Nancy Guthrie vanished, the mystery surrounding her disappearance remains unsolved. The destroyed cameras, the unexplained DNA evidence, and the mysterious phone call referencing millions of dollars. Each of these details may be part of a larger puzzle investigators are still trying to understand. For Nancy's family and the community following the case, the waiting has been agonizing. Everyone wants answers, and investigators believe the truth may still be hidden somewhere within the evidence already collected. For now, one question continues to haunt the investigation. Was Nancy Guthrie taken by a stranger, or by someone much closer to home? As the FBI and local authorities continue pursuing new leads, they remain determined to uncover the truth. Because somewhere within this complex web of evidence, one clue may finally reveal what really happened the night Nancy disappeared. And when that moment comes, the answer could change everything.